I want to thank all of you for inviting me. I want to thank the distinguished faculty, the HGSE staff, the alumni, all of you for including me. It's really an honor when you come back to your alma mater. So it feels extra special to be here. You know, you're already distinguished, all of you. You're already teachers and principals and superintendents and policymakers and entrepreneurs. You're already that. So as that, all of us, really, we have a special responsibility, right? We need to be extra, super, hyper responsible and aware of the political and social issues that affect our lives today and, of course, affect our futures, because we teach and guide and nurture and create infrastructure and build context for young people. They rely on us. You all remember what it was like being a kid, a little kid. We each had our own dreams and anxieties. I grew up in a suburb of New York City in Teaneck, New Jersey, in a white house, literally, with a red door and a white picket fence. There was a lot of it that was kind of stereotypically middle class. I remember playing on the block where my house was with other kids, and I never wandered too far from my house. In fact, I would periodically run back to my mom to hug her legs. She called it refueling. And then on the first day of kindergarten, I didn't want my mom to leave me there in Mrs. Garfunkel's class. So I cried. I had separation anxiety. And I also had separation anxiety when I left for college. I cried. I didn't want to leave my mom and my dad and my sister and my dog. I didn't want to leave Winthrop Road. But I always had a little separation anxiety. Separating just made me nervous. Leaving made me immediately romanticize what I was leaving behind. I worried a lot. You know, what might I be losing? Well, something similar happens on a societal level. We as adults have a kind of separation anxiety if something challenges our traditional ways of life. We worry about separating from things that make us comfortable, and not just from moms or dads' houses and beds, not just from streets and towns, but from ideas and habits. The problem is, some of our ideas and habits are not good. It's easy to think about the special, familial, homey things that we don't want to leave behind. We even work hard to replicate them when we build our own homes. I remember I grew up using Crest toothpaste, and my husband grew up using Colgate, and now we have a tube of each in our bathroom. I mean, change is hard, and sometimes we just don't do it. But some things need to be changed. There are habits and situations and circumstances that need to change, and in order to make those necessary changes, we need to take a step back, separate ourselves from the things that we've become accustomed to, and I'm especially talking about the need to separate from some of the inexcusable societal routines we've got so used to, from racism, from misogyny, from the psychic numbing that allows us to kind of casually walk by a homeless person on the street with a "Feed Me" sign. We need to make a conscious effort to look at our society in a reasonably objective way to determine for ourselves what is worth keeping and what is harmful and destructive. It is our job as educators, as people who work with children, to separate ourselves from what has become routine, a world of unfairness and inequality that can get reinforced in our classrooms and then in our boardrooms. As a society, I'm saying we have become impervious, desensitized, and numb, and we have to change, because if we do not change, we stand to lose everything. I'm going to explain this. We have become impervious to the warnings of scientists all over the world about global warming. And you might have read Bill McKibben's piece in a New Yorker article. We have killed off 60% of the world's wildlife since 1970 by destroying their habitats. We've watched as 100 million trees died in the state of California in 10 years because of drought. We are actually right now in danger of standing by as a United States president uses the power of his presidency to assemble a panel to undermine the research on climate change and global warming. We have become desensitized on our college campuses around the country. We're facing expressions of hatred and bigotry. There are, for example, swastikas on bathroom walls, anti-Muslim slurs on dorm room doors, the N-word written in common spaces. You may all know the story of an African-American female student who was elected student president at her university, the first Black female student government president at her school. And later, students woke to find bananas hanging from nooses around campus. We have become numb. Almost 1/3 of all Americans are living in poverty or what we call near poverty. That's 100 million people. 100 million people. This should be a crisis of epic proportions, and our hearts should ache that a country of such wealth could have so many experiencing such suffering. The truth is, my generation has left a mess for young people. We got complacent, impervious, desensitized, numb. And the reasons are complicated, but I believe that a big part of it was that we didn't take a step back to assess and then decide in the most uncompromising, definitive way to sever ourselves from that which we know is wrong. And in a society that today is operating in triple time, consuming sound bites and video bites like they're M&Ms, we just forgot or forget to stop and pay attention to the mess. So we have to change. There's no shortage of issues we can point to. In our field alone, we struggle with teacher pay, bullying, overcrowded classrooms, and funding. In a country where we can't agree to restrict access to guns, we end up putting metal detectors and actual police in our schools. We schedule drills to protect kids in the event of an active shooter. We grapple with the abuses of privilege, with the admissions scandal, and wonder if an adversity score will help address the monstrous challenges of access and equity in higher education. These issues directly affecting our work in education are not the only ones we must focus on. The inequities are all around us, in our world at large. They affect how we teach, how we set policy, how we make administrative decisions, how we support the healthy development of young people. We are living in the most diverse United States in history. Non-Hispanic whites will no longer be the majority within the next few decades, and in fact, in our biggest cities, that is already the case. And yet we don't see that diversity reflected in leadership positions in the workforce, right? I mean, how is it that today in 2019, the United States Senate is 90% white and only 30% women? These are our representatives. 83% of the presidents of four-year colleges are white. Only 30% are women. And education is a field dominated by women. Of the 500 people who are CEOs of our biggest companies, you all know this, less than 5% are women. I once went to a CEO conference as a CEO. I was sitting in a session, and the leader asked us to go around the table and introduce ourselves. I was the only woman in the room. They passed the microphone. The mic came around to the man next to me on my right. He introduced himself, and then he passed the mic around me to the man on my left. We as a society must change. We must change so that electing a Black president, a woman president, a differently abled president, an openly gay president is nothing special. We must change so that we don't confuse fear-mongering with patriotism, walls with safety, and manipulators with leaders. If distancing, if separating, if severing ourselves from these things is radical, then it is time for us to be radical. We must step back, give ourselves perspective. Static routines and habits are ill-suited for the ever-changing environments we all live in. We need to find comfort not in what is routine or habitual, but in the idea of change as an opportunity for something better, because it is the idea that we can change that should give us hope. You are graduating into a world with tremendous challenges, but I know you already have a higher set of expectations, or you wouldn't be here. You are going to hold us all accountable, and I thank you for that, and frankly, that gives me hope. You are a talented, sparkling group of individuals who now has benefited from having met one another, from having studied with Bob Peterkin and Nancy Hill, with Eleanor Duckworth, with Josephine Kim, with Robert Gonzalez and Dick Elmore. The list of good brains here is long. For me, it made an enormous difference. Gary Orfield taught me how to think about integration and civil rights in current time. Derek Bach helped me define merit as much more than a test score and to stand up to anti-affirmative action rhetoric. Judy McLaughlin helped me think about leadership and education and how college and university presidents can most effectively do their jobs. I constantly refer to Jim Honen's lectures and materials on organizational structure and nonprofit management. And Julie Rubin gave me the background to understand how student engagement and student protests over history have influenced where we are today, but more importantly, what is possible for tomorrow. We are students of education. Now, what we do with that is what matters most. We need inspired leadership. We need bravery. And now we're all out there together. We have to do what's right. From now on, you're part of this big Hugsy network. Today or tomorrow or 10 years from tomorrow, you can pick up the phone and call anybody in our network, and we will answer the call, right? Right. It's pretty powerful if you think about it. I think sometimes it feels impossible to know how to make a difference. You need to care, you need to vote, you need to do what feels radical sometimes. And that might mean standing up for just one person who has been marginalized, victimized, or underrepresented. I'm going to just tell you one more story about something you can do, everyone in this room can do. And if everyone in this room does it, it's going to change the world for sure. You need to become a table pounder. I'm going to explain. Not that long ago, I was in a room with 50 Posse alumni. They were with the former CEO, recent former CEO of Deloitte, Kathy Engelbert. One Posse alum raised her hand and she asked Kathy, she said, "You're a woman. How did you get to be the CEO of a Fortune 500 company?" And Kathy said, "I'll tell you how. You have to work hard. You have to find the right mentors. And there has to be someone who will pound the table for you. And let me tell you what I mean by that," she said. "I worked hard. I found good mentors. But there was also an executive who, when the door was closed, would pound the table and say, 'You know, have you thought about Kathy? Kathy's someone to consider. You know, have you considered Kathy? Kathy. And Kathy became the CEO of Deloitte. You should all work hard, and you should all find mentors. And maybe there was someone who pounded the table for you, but each of you, with this Hugsy degree in your hand, this incredible network around you, can pound the table for someone else, right? Right. Sarah Osman and Ivy Sokol, you can pound the table, right? Daniel Hack and Yu Wang, Mariah Lewis, you are going to pound the table. Drew Edwards, Nell Weber, Jason Terry, you can pound the table. If each of you becomes a table pounder for someone else, for just one person, that will make all the difference. We are in a field that gives us power. Power to influence how people understand the world. We can help young people see the absurdities of bigotry, and we can inspire them to lead differently when they grow up. They can and should be leaders who understand that they are better, stronger, more effective when they consider race and gender and class and privilege in every single decision that gets made. From hiring to project assignments, it all matters. We must fight for that which we believe to be fair and just, and that means we must fight for one another. So you must challenge yourself to never feel too comfortable. Sit on the edge of that seat, ready to stand up for someone else and to take the leap yourself. It might cause a little anxiety, but you are the person. You are the people to do it. And together, you are an army with the power of your convictions to act decisively. I know you're going to change the world, and we really need you to do that. Thank you.